Hello everyone, this is Couple. Welcome back to A Couple Books. Today we are going to be doing a book review. I'm not sure if you guys know, but it was recently Halloween and I like horror books, I like ghosts, I like all those things because I like being scared and not sleeping, of course. I decided to read on Halloween night 12 Nights at Rotter's House by J.W. Ocker. Now, this is a very interesting read and I'm excited to get into it with you guys, but before we get started, just a few things. Number one, the first part of this video is going to be spoiler free, the second half is going to be spoiler filled, and I will be giving a rating on the book before I get into spoilers, so those who are here for the non-spoiler part can get my full idea about the book and decide for yourselves whether or not to go and buy it. Of course, my opinion is subjective, so please don't take that necessarily to heart, but I'm hoping you guys can decide whether or not to buy or not buy this book based off what I'm telling you guys today. So I'm looking forward to hearing what your thoughts are on the book in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get started. So this book by J.W. Ocker, it follows a character named Felix. Felix is a travel writer who goes to haunted places, off the beaten path, full of lore and horror stories, and he goes to these locations, he stays there for a period of time, he writes about it, he publishes it. Now, Felix is really successful within his niche market, like his very small group of people, and he hasn't necessarily hit the mass paperback market in your local bookstore yet. So while he's got his little tiny community of fans, he isn't making it big, and he needs a big break to really push him over the edge and really enter into a new stratosphere of authorship. And since he's a travel writer, he decides that he needs to find a haunted house. And I'm not saying just like a typical haunted house. He needs to find like the next Amityville horror. He needs to find the next big haunted house. And he finds the perfect place, Rotterdam. Rotterdam House is this house that was once owned by a man named Rotterdam. Crazy, right? And he was a chair manufacturer and he produced high quality chairs a few dozen years ago. And since he's passed, this house has exchanged ownerships over the years. While it's been exchanging hands, it has had several horrendous and terrifying things happen in there, such as horrible murders, horrible suicides, horrible executions, whatever you can name is pretty much happened in this book. Felix finds this place and he decides to reach out to the owner. He finds the owner, asks her for permission to stay there for 13 nights in this haunted house. And she expresses hesitation but eventually consents because he is going to hopefully write her book into fame and fortune. He goes there and he has this idea that while he's there, he's going to experience full sensory tank deprivation. He's going to go in with all of his senses open. He turns off his phone, he disconnects any electronics he has, and he goes in there with just a flashlight, some food, with the full intention of staying there the full 13 nights. And afterwards he plans on writing about the history about the house and his experience. The interesting thing about Felix is that he doesn't believe in ghosts. So this is a very exciting thing to see happen. A non-believer who loves the paranormal and loves it all, and going into this situation semi-blind, we're not really knowing what's going to happen and how his non-believing is going to impact the story. Now, that's just Felix. With Felix in this house is his really good best friend, like your best bro, Thomas. Thomas is his really good friend for, it seems, all of his life up until a year ago when something happened. We don't really know what happened between them, and there's obviously high tension between them and not the fun kind of tension, and they decide to meet up and join on his second night or third night in the house, and together they explore the house, they learn about its history. Things may or may not be happening in the house, it's rather unclear, and throughout this journey, we basically get to experience what it's like for a travel writer who doesn't believe in ghosts to experience a haunted house. I was stoked to read this book. I thought it was a really interesting premise. The whole locking yourself in, the whole non-believer status of the narrator was of course interesting. This hidden storyline about the tension between Felix and Thomas was of course also intriguing, as you want to know what's going on and why they haven't spoken in a year. Some of the things I loved about this book was I really enjoyed the characters themselves. I thought Felix was really interesting. I enjoyed watching his thinking process. It's also interesting to read a book from the perspective of a author, as he is aware that what he's experiencing will one day be turned into a book, and so you see him take certain actions and make certain decisions that are to solely engage the audience in which he's trying to reach. So you see the inner workings of our real life author impacting the internal workings of our story author as he constructs this narrative, which was absolutely fantastic. Thomas is, of course, another interesting character who really has a distinct personality, has distinct reactions, and you really feel the once bromance between these two guys. And overall, their relationship was very fascinating. In terms of the actual scare factor of the book, there were definitely parts I jumped at. I had to there were a few pages where I just had to close down the book and just be zen, breathe, do some exercises and just re-center myself to continue through the reading. Of course, I did read this in one sitting because I'm insane, and overall was a very interesting read. Now, having covered the overall story being quite interesting and quite exciting, and having a few scares, and the characters both being interesting participants, one of my gripes with this book was the dialogue. It was interesting most of the time, but there were parts where it really just felt like we were being fed out of the hand, which makes a certain amount of sense, but at the same time it was almost too much, and I would have rather have had a more organic storytelling happen, while especially discovering the past between Thomas and Felix and what happened a year ago that led to them not speaking for a whole year. I would have enjoyed having that been hinted at and slowly had clues dropped, rather than big revelations coming up throughout the story. That's one part. The other main gripe I had with this book was the ending. I didn't feel like it was deserved. It was a really fun ride. I really enjoyed it, and then the ending happened, and I was just like, "What? Why? Why did you do that?" Not saying it was a bad ending. I just think it didn't stick it. It's a 5 out of 10 on the sticking. So, in terms of my personal opinion and taking all these factors into consideration, I would recommend it, especially if you're into haunted houses. I definitely don't think this is something you should be missing out on, even considering my gripes about it. And I'm going to be giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So, that's my rating. Now, with that being said, I hope those who have not read the book might give it a chance, might decide not to give it a chance, but either way, I hope you guys drop a subscribe and a like, and I'd be interested to hear what your guys' thoughts are in the comment section down below, so don't be shy. And with that being said, let's get into spoiler talk. Okay, so spoilers, team. Oh. Why? Why did he do this to us? The book was so good, it was so interesting, I was invested. The whole Felix freaking out at the end, I was like, what? Why is he freaking out? What's going on? Are there actually, is the owner of the house actually messing with him? What is actually going on? I can't figure it out. I really honestly couldn't. I was like, I can't, some pages I'm fully with Felix that there's someone there and there's someone in the walls, and then the next second I'm like, there's something not right that's going on here. Is it an actual haunting? Is it psychological? I was half convinced everything going on was psychological. I did kind of get the ending at one point when I started to question the reality and whether or not he was actually experiencing these things. I'm like, is Thomas even real? But that was as close as I got to the ending. I had absolutely no clue that this was all in his head. Oh, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. I've seen this type of ending before, where it's basically a whole psychological torture, but sometimes I feel cheated because it's just kind of the whole the waking, when a story ends and it's, and he woke up from his dream, or she woke up from her dream, it felt like that. It felt a little cheated, but the story itself was excellent. I really enjoyed it pretty much all the way up until the last 10 pages. I was enthralled, I was interested, I wanted to know the whole revelation that this ghosts that he was seeing were actually his wife and Thomas was like that was mind blowing. But if the hints were dropped, that would have been appreciated. Like maybe they were, and I'm just special, but I wasn't picking up on the hints. Yes, I did pick up on the big, massive hint in the beginning that he was covered in blood. I was like, that was weird, but I wrote it off. Fine, it was a lot of blood. Maybe it's the ghost trying to mess with him psychologically. I kind of wrote it off, and I realized I did that too early. But even though I wrote it off too early, there should have been more hints. Like maybe he could have said something about how the body of the mannequin reminded him of his wife. Just any other hints could have been dropped to signal to the reader that what is happening is not as clear as it seems. And I should have seen that coming. Of course, now after the fact, I probably would have picked up on more stuff, but while reading it, there weren't enough clues being dropped, so I felt a little cheated by the ending. Now, let's move on from the ending. Let's move on to some of my favorite parts. When they are going through and they get the image of the ghost, and it was actually, and then they realized that the ghost was one of the mannequins that they were messing with downstairs in the basement. I was like, boom. Now that is interesting. That is fun. That is exciting narrative clues being dropped. That you're like, oh my god, they were messing with that mannequin, and it wasn't a mannequin. Like, whoa, like, okay, there we go. Thank you, Ocker. Like, that is what I'm looking for in this book. That kind of like creepy, eerie suspense. Like while you're dropping jump scares at us, you're also giving us that uber creepy feeling. And I'm like, yes, tingles of my spine are happening. I'm happy. This is good. Also, the history of the house was kind of interesting. I was kind of not laughing, but highly entertained when he was going to each of the rooms and writing down on the rooms what he was thinking about it and what happened in the room, the history, like the strangulation room, the suicide room, the beheading room, whatever the different methods of death that happened in each room, and they were each interesting. And the whole dolls happening at the end, the dolls being there was always creepy, always knowing that they're in the chest, and you just know the dolls are going to make a comeback at some point. Like, there were excellent parts about this book. But with all that being said, I can say that the book is a 4 to 5 star book for up until the last 10 pages, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're like, oh, I just, like, why? Like, there was no hint. You know, like, he could have had horrible, like, why not have a nightmare sequence of him imagining this going on in his head? And you're like, well, that's messed up, man. And then at the end you realize, oh, no, he was actually experiencing what was actually happening. And I have I'm confused about the timeline. Like, did he murder his wife and Thomas on the first night, right before he went to the house? Or did he leave the house and come back, and that's why he was so tired when he woke up after his first night in the house? So I have a little confusion about how exactly it worked. I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? Can you drop it down in this comment section down below? Just remember the comment spoilers so that those who have not had a chance to read the book yet don't get spoiled. But overall, a very good read, a very good Halloween read. Will I be picking up again? Probably not. Maybe will. I thought it was interesting, and I will be looking for more of this author's works because he got me into the book. I was there. You know, I thought his writing style was my kind of style. His character development was my kind of character development. He just needed to work a little bit on the dialogue between the main characters and work on some of the foreshadowing aspects of his story and basically redo the ending. But honestly, an ending is just a part of a story, and the rest of the parts of the story were absolutely fantastic in my opinion. So that is my spoiler review. Interesting book. Enjoyed it. Didn't love it, but definitely a decent Halloween read, and I'm glad I read it this year. So thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for your time, your energy, your eyes on my face, and all that stuff. And I look forward to hearing from you guys later down in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. See you guys later. Bye.